We had your friend here 2 weeks ago, Cenk. We had him on. I don't
Yes,
know
my good buddy.
Yeah, we had him on.
We're like Gilligan and the Skipper.
Yeah, so...
I like how you slow play when you talk about him, very slowly.
But,
Yes.
But the reason why I bring that up is the following reason.
Yeah.
Here's why I bring it up. So the question I got, Joe and I were talking, Rogan and I were talking over the week, and I look at politics and I look at what's pulling what more and who's winning. Okay. Imagine the people on the right are like, no, you guys are going far too left. And the left is like, no, you guys are going far too right. You got to come more to the left, right? Okay, so Cenk goes from say he's a Republican, to an independent, to a Democrat, to a Bernie super left, right? Is what he goes. I have a very hard time understanding that evolution, that you go that far left as you age. And his arguments are solid arguments, and some of the ones that he makes for his side. I'm like, okay, fine, that's your argument. I get it. Hey, the only mistake America made is when they gave $465 million to Elon Musk. They should have bought a piece of the company and had equity in it. Okay, cool. So nationalized. That's the argument. Let's have more companies be owned by the government, and we regulate it, and they can't make more money than
I completely disagree with the argument, but I get your point.
His method of making the argument, I'll say, okay, I'll see how you're going to it. But who's winning today? And this is a question to everybody, by the way. Tyler, think about this as well. Tom, I'm coming to you as well. You've been around longer than we have. Who's winning today? Is the right pulling people more to the right winning today? Is the center holding this thing? Are they being tilted to the left or tilted to the right? Or is the left winning more, trying to drag people to their side?
You want to hit that one
Tom,
first?
Why don't you go first?
You've been around longer.
Thank you very much for that, Pat. Appreciate that.
A little deference here,
Age before beauty is what he's trying to say, Tom.
All right, can I answer eventually? So I look at a couple things, and just real quick, I've been looking at differentials in voter registrations for the last 3 months, and you're seeing it in college students. You're nodding. You know some of the data I'm talking about.
I definitely know the Florida version.
It's about 5% ahead for independents and Republicans right now versus Dems. And even if you take the independents out, which you would understand why a lot of people are jumping to the middle like that, you still have Republicans are ahead on voter registrations right now going in the midterm election. So I think that is a sign of what's kind of winning as the new voters are registering.
Let me add one thing on that, which is the Florida numbers, and you guys can check me as I'm saying it so I get the numbers roughly right. But I heard DeSantis say this last week, that Florida basically before him had a 200,000 deficit on the Republican side in terms of registered voters. I think they're up 80,000 now.
That's 280
so,
split. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a huge, we can check the exact numbers, but that's a huge shift right there. So that's one thing. I would also say that the left-right thing sort of doesn't make sense anymore, because Trump came in and crushed the system to a point that people who were traditionally conservative started sounding like liberals. Liberals started, especially now, sound like the craziest authoritarians. So left-right doesn't make sense to me anymore in the specific sense. I usually try to say you're either authoritarian or libertarian, and what I mean by that is you're not a libertarian, meaning I'm a card-carrying member of the Libertarian Party and I run around naked on stage, demanding that nobody has driver's licenses. But you either believe in individual liberty, you can figure out the best way to live your life, and the government should basically stay out of the way and do some minimal stuff, and that's it. Or you believe in the machine. You believe that some machine, if we just gave it enough money and enough power and enough purview over all of our ability to think and act and everything else, that somehow us giving all of that power to that thing could somehow govern us better than we can actually govern ourselves. So that makes more sense to me rather than left, right, or Democrat versus Republican, because none of JFK would be a Republican now.
No question about it.
He would be a Republican. He was cutting taxes. He was anti-war, right? He was a patriot. He was hated by the machine, and maybe the machine killed him. You talked to Oliver Stone. I mean,
right.
So the whole thing has shifted in a really bizarre way. But to answer who's winning, I think the right broadly, if we're just using the right-left thing, is really starting to win. I think the woke thing is so out of control. This nonsense, don't say gay stuff, the critical race stuff. They're attacking people's children now. It was one thing to lock people in their homes, confuse them about economics, all of that stuff. But when you see cities burning and the riots that we had, by the way, we don't, it's really odd. Since Trump left, we don't have race riots anymore. It's almost as if there maybe was some coordination with someone.
Yeah.
I don't know, is this Alex Jones level stuff, But I think they've gone so far on everything. A Supreme Court justice nominee can't say what a woman is. It's so bananas that I think average people are just like, I've had enough of this. And what that leaves you with is what I say on my show all the time. You don't have to be a Republican, but you cannot be a Democrat. I think that's basically where we're at.
Dave, so for you, when you talk about your story and you're transitioning, you talk about Sam Harris and Bill Maher and Ben Affleck. So that's one of when they had the Muslim. No, who are you? Are you now the say-all, be-all, and you know everything about this? Well,
You're
I kind of am overqualified to talk about this. Yeah. And then you say Larry Elder, which you and Larry Elder sat down and said, there is a little bit of racism. Tell me what? Tell me what? Tell me the data. Tell me the data with this. There was this many, 15,000, 7,000 black on black. Tell me what data. And you're like, well, but tell me. You asked the question. And you go. So that was an interesting moment. And then you also, in regards to the topic with atheists, well, Jordan Peterson kind of influenced, maybe not being an atheist. Okay, so we're all influenced by certain people that change our beliefs. All of us. I am, you are, we all are. Who influenced Cenk when you saw the process to go from Republican to independent to Dem to Bernie? How does that influence take place?
So first, let me just say, broadly speaking about Cenk, which I don't really do. I really don't. I'm happy to. I said to you right before we started, we can talk about absolutely anything. It's totally fine. They've done a gajillion videos lying about me and maligning me and all this stuff. I've never done a video about them, period, since I left. Not one. So I just want to put that out there. It's just because there's a little bit of asymmetry. It just doesn't matter to me. I was part of something. It didn't end well. I think seeing that sort of hysteria and that moment with Sam and everything, it really did wake me up. So I'm grateful for that. It's one of those things. I look back, I don't think that fondly of the whole experience, but man, it woke me up and life's been good since, and I evolved, and that's all good. So to answer your question specifically, by the time I got there in 2013, he was already a lefty and a Bernie guy. So I don't know that much about his shift from Republican or conservative, let's say in college, to what got him there. But I think what you said before is right. It's really hard to track a human being that goes in that direction as they get older. Meaning most people, you become more conservative, meaning you start realizing that life is sort of up to you, that that you don't want that much interference in your life, all of those things. And as a businessman, which I suppose he purports to be a businessman, I mean, he's running a network, it really makes no sense because you want low taxes so that you can invest more. I mean, look what you guys have built, freaking extraordinary. So you would want all of the ideas that I started to come around to, the more libertarian conservative ideas, I just started putting them into my life. So when Larry Elder smacked me around that day, that started a process, even though we were talking really about race, it started a process that got me reading Thomas Sowell books and then ultimately interviewing Thomas Sowell, which is probably the greatest thrill of my career. It started a process of opening myself up to these ideas, and then the path is kind of obvious. You just go down that path. Someone that goes the other way, I just don't understand how you get older and you're like, no, the system should do it more for us, or no, the government needs more of our money, or any of those things. I will say this, honestly, I haven't watched a show of his in years. I don't know that he really believes it in his heart of hearts. I don't. Yeah.
So I asked this question because I'm wondering, the only way I think somebody goes further that side is someone offended you. Okay, someone
Right.
must have, and by the way, listen, Reagan was offended. If you think about why Reagan was partly offended. If you really study the story of Reagan, he was offended. If you study the history of, and I know I don't want to drop Reagan and Hitler in the same name, Hitler was offended. You got, Elizabeth Warren was offended. A lot of people were offended. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did. And then you go do it. But you don't necessarily know if you're doing the right thing just because the person that offended you. So you're flipping no matter what. That offense could be a mom, could be a dad, could be an ex, could be a friend, could be a coworker, could be a former investor, could be a lot of different things. In that moment when you're offended, I think if you react too emotionally, you may all of a sudden pick up belief systems that are not aligned with you. And then what oozes out is bitterness. And when bitterness oozes out, I don't want to, we have a hard time. We all got relatives when we're bitter. At some phase of our lives, we've probably been bitter. It's like, people are like, listen, man, I just don't like to be around you lately. Why? Because, I don't know, it feels like everybody's upsetting you. Your fuse is so short. I'm like, man, am I really like that? Bro, it's hard to be around you lately, man. It's go, okay, cool. Well, thank you for telling me that. And we kind of figure out a way to improve. Because I do think Cenk and I have never had dinner before. We've never gone out before. We've never done anything like that before. That was our first sit down. We've never had a conversation prior to that. I walked away and I said, this guy's got a great processor. He's very witty. He's fast. Mm-hmm. He knows how to troll you and poke because he's an expert at doing that. This guy, I don't know if maybe he needs to have the moment that maybe you had. I don't know. I'm speculating, but
I actually think you're making a great point on the offense part. And could something be so personal that causes your whole way of thinking to crack? I think the Sam moment that you brought up, I remember. I mean, I was working there at the time, and I was having my wake-up call at that moment when I saw that real-time moment. Like, that was all my frustrations with what the left was becoming, because I was working for these guys, and everybody that disagreed with them was a racist and a bigot and a homophobe. And I was like, none of this makes sense. It can't be that we're all so right, us lefties. We're so right about everything, and not only are we so right, but everyone who we disagree with is literally the worst person in the world. So that moment woke me up, and then... You may have seen it. Sam came to the studio.
Oh, yeah.
Did this 3-hour conversation. Sam sits there quietly, calm, nice
with Janks,
suit.
you're saying.
Oh,
yeah, and Cenk is sweating, and the papers are flying all over the place. And there's a moment, I think it's at moment 19, minute 19, if people want to see it, where Sam says something about probability theory. And Cenk basically says, I don't believe in it. That's like saying you don't believe in gravity. I mean, it's real whether you believe it or not. It's happening right now. But I think, that thing kind of broke him in a bizarre way, and that was the beginning of the end for me. That was in the fall of, I think, 2014, if I'm not mistaken, and I left in January of 2015 because at that moment I was like, I can't work for this guy anymore. I was already shifting politically, but it's not easy to just give up your job. I wasn't making a lot of money, but it was my job. But over those months, I was just like, enough's enough.
Can I say something that I learned about Cenk? Because I haven't watched the Young Turks in years and years and years. That guy's an emotional dude.
Yeah.
Okay. And if there's anything that I've learned from being, sitting right next to Pat for the last few years, it's to try your best to be more logical than emotional.
Yeah.
And what we learned about, number one, I thought he was a cool dude. Like, I think we could go have a beer with that guy, watch a sports game, like actually kick it with the guy. Would you disagree?
There's a big difference between a relationship like that until you make the transition into money and boss and that.
I'm not even saying a work
But
relationship.
okay, yes, I
like
agree.
if we went to dinner and we watched the game, I think he'd be a cool guy.
I agree.
I went to his house to watch basketball games.
So so I try because I've like the transition that you've gone through, Dave.
Yeah.
I'm going through.
I know the story well.
Okay,
I'm here to finish the job, by the way.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, I was discussing.
Jack is helping him out, though. Jack is helping him out.
But a lot of it is, logical and stuff that you've been, fed for years and years and years. It's not like, like Candace Owens. She went through something very similar, the red pill black, all that. I saw your interview with her.
Yep.
But with Cenk, and here's something that he did that I probably wouldn't have done 2 years ago. When we brought up Trump's a fucking moron, and he got super emotional. And me, who traditionally would have been that person 2 years ago, was like, Cenk,
That wasn't his style 2 years ago.
No.
Yeah.
I was like, Cenk, are you telling me that it's like he's 0% done anything right? Like, I'm at least willing to say, I'm not a Trump guy at all, but I'm at least willing to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
And if there's things that he's done that are good, that have helped, the country, the world, whatever, I'm willing to do that. And if there's things that are bad, so there's a lot of gray area there. But to be some completely black and white about anything, and to to dig in and double down, that's hard to do. And then I'm kind of putting together your timeline. I said he's saying he's a Bernie guy. Well, Bernie didn't really hit the national scene until 2015, 2016. You had left by 2014 or something around there.
Yeah, 2015.
He probably was in his methodology at that point, and then boom, Bernie comes along in 2016, and he becomes the largest Bernie advocate out there, right?
But also the part of that you got to understand is that then the woke part got in too.
Yep.
Bernie was doing an economic populist thing. You could agree with it or disagree with it. I obviously disagree with it, although some of the broad high level points make some sense to me, but the policies of just taxation and more for the government make no sense to me. But the deal with the devil that I think the left has done is that they took socialist economics And then they combined it with what is cultural Marxism, this idea that your deficiencies or your immutable characteristics or your whatever you want to call it are the most important thing about you. So they combine something that makes no sense. And that's why they're all so hysterical all the time. But I will tell you one thing on the emotional side of this. So Cenk and I and a whole bunch of guys that worked for TYT used to play basketball every Sunday from about 7 a.m. to noon, 5 hours.
Nice.
Busting our asses.
You got some game, Dave?
I'm pretty damn good. Okay. I'm pretty damn good.
Okay, good.
Actually, you know what? Do you guys play?
He's very good.
Come down. I got a full court at my house. Come down.
You got to do.
Serious. I'm pulling together a great game in Miami.
Okay.
Anyway, I have a torn ACL on my left knee though, so I got to play with one of those freaking trap jaw braces. Sucks. But all right.
You and Francis Ngannou, both with the torn ACL. He was here yesterday. UFC heavyweight champion of the world.
Is that right? I did it. Believe it or not, I did it the last time I played with Jank. The last time I played with Jank, I was going to block a shot. It was 10-10, games to 11. It wasn't win by 2. And a guy had a breakaway, and I did block the shot, but I came down, tore my ACL. That was 5 years ago. Anyway, but we played this game every Sunday, busting our asses. I loved it. I loved it more than anything else. Like, that's where I'm truly at my happiest. And Cenk was the most emotional, screaming, like the worst type of person you would ever want to play basketball. Every call that didn't go his way, screaming. He'd kick the basketball, scream. And I kid you not, it was across the street from a very, very famous church in L.A. I'll tell you guys off camera because I want to say exactly where it was. And twice, we played on Sundays, twice police had to come to the court to ask him to stop screaming because people were going to church on Sunday mornings. So that sort of tells you what you need to know about the overly emotional
part of
but it's like a seventh grader playing basketball. Like, you don't, when you're an adult and you're all out there like trying to have fun and not basically blow out our knee or break our neck.
Right.
Stop screaming at everybody.
What part of LA
man.
were you in? Was the basketball court?
You're gonna give it away.
Yeah, I don't want to fully. I'll tell you guys later.
But
Church of the Open Door.
But listen, I will tell you. Super competitive guy. He's a super competitive guy. And when you're super competitive, there's nobody. If you don't take control of that competitive spirit, it's gonna get the worst out of you. You gotta somehow take control of it, and learn how to manage that energy. But it is what it is. Appreciate you for bringing it up. You're gonna like playing with this guy because he was one cut away from getting into the NBA. Chauncey Billups' nephew got the position over him to get into the NBA. Literally, true story.
Wait, this is literal?
This is a literal story. He was on the.
I used to be a baller.
Yeah.
Damn. Now
Chris
I'm getting
Humphries,
red-pilled left
when
and right.
Chris
nice.
Humphries married Kim Kardashian, he was one of the groomsmen. He was on. Yeah. So he's the best Jewish athlete in Miami. That's all you need to know.
So I'll tell you, I can't do this one on camera either. But my house that I bought here was owned by an NBA player. That's why I got this pretty sick court.
Cool.
So,
he's probably going to know who it is because he parties with all those guys in Miami. So
We'll
anyways,
connect
you
after.
guys will hook
Yeah.
up afterwards, and
Yeah.
you guys will do that. So appreciate you for being a sport and talking about it. I know sometimes, listen,
Right.
Yeah,
four
thank you for
four things you do in life that changes the relationship, and you have to be mature to be able to manage it. 1, the moment you have sex with somebody changes the relationship. 2, the moment you go into business with somebody, it can be your best friend, changes the relationship. 3, the moment you travel with somebody and share rooms, it changes the relationship. And 4, the moment you pay somebody, it changes the relationship, goes to another level. Tom and I, we've traveled together, God knows how many years. 15 years we've been traveling together, Tom and I.
I need to point out that we only checked off 3 of them.
The 4th we have is it is you're happily married, I'm happily married,
And
so
it's,
we're
the
good.
payment, it's the payment thing. Tom works for free.
I had about 10 jokes rolling through my head, and well done.
Anyway.
In case you're the biz doc with Jaffa Gem.
oh,
They're
gosh.
Okay, so let's
Hey,
that was
not that there's
close.
anything wrong with that.
If you enjoyed this short clip, click over here to watch another short clip. And if you want to watch the entire episode, the entire podcast, click here.